Decolonization of India. By the 1900s, many Europeans had dominated much of the world. With the help of new weapons, Europeans unleashed an incredible amount of violence. They colonized much of Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. Sadly, the conquest to colonization was constantly violent. Although there were those who questioned the very essence of violence and whether it was necessary or not. Leo Tolstoy, for example, wrote a book about war and peace, and explores Jesus' message for a non-violence, arguing government and individuals needed to give up violence if they were true believers of Christianity. He also believed non-violence was the solution to ending communism. In 1908, Tolstoy wrote a letter to a Hindu, which was Mahatma Gandhi. In that letter, he explained how Indians needed to confront British imperialists with love and non-violence. Soon after, Gandhi published a letter in his South African newspaper, Indian Opinion. In 1909, this letter marked the beginning of advocates of non-violence all over the world. At a young age, Gandhi was also influenced to the idea of non-violence through ahimsa. And in 1929, Gandhi wrote an autobiography where he wrote that ahimsa could be the basis for Indian resistance to British rule. Gandhi looked at non-violence not only as a key to decolonization, but also as a way of life. Gandhi began a protest, a movement, of non-violence to achieve independence by weakening the British government. Gandhi used passive resistance through boycotts of British goods, schools, taxes, and elections. But perhaps the biggest movement is the Salt March of 1930. Since the mid-19th century, British had placed taxes on salt. Gandhi saw these laws as an example of how British despotism affected all individuals. Gandhi marched from his home in a meth about all the way to the coast in order to harvest salt. March took almost 2 whole months, and to gather mass amount of media. And because of this protest, Gandhi's protest, the Salt March, other protesters began to spread, and there was much more civil disobedience around the whole. Because of Gandhi's march, civil disobedience began to spread all around Britain, and they began to arrest people. The media began to focus on these protests, and popular opinion began to see the British as what they are, unjust. By refusing to use non-violence of his own, Gandhi was able to get rid of colonization. And a little bit of more will happen after the war, my compadre tell you. But it isn't over yet, because in 1935, Hindu leaders were arrested for speaking against Britain. By the end of World War II, Great Britain is no longer a strong nation. They have weakened, so they give India independence in 1947. They managed to reach constitutional independence, which is basically a peaceful transfer of power. When the British left, the Indian colony was partitioned into modern India, and West and East Pakistan. That's all right here. See the picture. So there's one thing that went wrong. Even though the transfer of power was peaceful and all that, what wasn't peaceful was I'd have to move 12 million people from their houses. As Hindus in Pakistan moved to India and Muslim and Indians moved to Pakistan. Of course, many left their home unwillingly. Sadly, about 500,000 people were killed. It's true that the massive protest forced Britain to end colonization, and that it was non-violent. But the emergence of the now independent state really wasn't. Of course, all this violence was devastating to Gandhi. So Gandhi went to Delhi to protest against this violence. Sadly, he was assassinated in January 30, 1948 by a nationalist Hindu who claimed that Gandhi was too kind to the Muslims. And I guess that's pretty much it. Let my compadre take over.